me romance. Read me romance. Read me romance. Read me romance. You could take a look in a book, that's fine. Or you could sit back, relax, and unwind and read me romance. Read me romance.
Welcome back, lady listeners.
Hey, lady listeners. Welcome to a new week at Read Me Romance. We have the amazing, the incomparable Rochelle Paige with us this week. She's brought us a book called Body Language, and I'm super excited to hear this one. It's going to be so hot and sexy. I just know it. We love Rochelle. She's a longtime bestie. We are just so thrilled to have her on the podcast with us. It's always nice when it's close friends, so we can just bullshit, and it's okay if we fuck up. They can't be mad at us. So yeah.
You know what she does now? Because I share locations with her for some stupid reason. I don't even know why.
Why not?
But, she's been like, because both of her kids are now in college.
Oh, hold on. Let me tell you what she said her fun fact was, because I know what you're about to say. So I started asking authors. I said, tell me like a fun fact or something you want us to say on there. She said, I'm currently a digital nomad. My oldest son just finished his master's degree, and the youngest is done with his freshman year of college. Since I'm an empty nester, I've spent the past year bouncing around the United States from coast to coast. I was like, what? I had
Everywhere
no
she goes,
idea.
she's somewhere different all the time.
And I was going to say, tell me, like, where is she going? What's she doing?
Well, she spent a lot of time in Vegas with Rochelle, or with Ella Fox.
Yeah, okay.
So she's been there with them. But every time I talk to her or I pick up my phone to text her, she's like, I never know where she is. Like, because I'll go like 4 or 5 days without texting her, and I'll pick up to say something because she's my reality friend.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
So I'll go to text her a fact I've seen or something, and then I'll see up the top because it tells me the location. I'm like, where the fuck are you now? Who are you with?
How is she like going around from? Does she have like a camper or like a?
No,
like,
I think she just has luggage. I mean, I think she still has her apartment. I'm guessing.
Oh, okay.
Like she still has, but she's just not staying there all the time. She's packing her bags and just staying gone. Like she jumps from one city to the next.
I wonder, does she like drive?
Her condo.
Yeah, does she drive? Does she fly? Do you know?
I would guess she would fly because she's down in Florida. Down there is where she's from.
Yeah, that'd be a lot of driving in. Yeah.
So, I don't know where her son went to college. I know that one was in Florida, but it was a drive because she would go out there all the time and she would stay overnight. But I know it was in Florida. Yeah. But she'd always like catch a hotel or something because years back, if I remember it, he had like roommates and stuff, so she wasn't going to stay with him.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
But yeah, she has the sweetest sons.
Oh, I love that.
She did such a good job. Such a good job. When she talks about her kids, I'm just like, God, you were so lucky. You have the sweetest, good boys, and they're good to her. And
yeah.
So it's sweet. And one got a girlfriend, and I'm like, I bet you're like the best mother-in-law.
I bet she is. Oh my God, I bet she's so nice and just sweet and just wants to like be helpful and like not in a like jealous, like manipulative way. She's just in general, she's just a genuinely wonderful person. So I can see how she would just want to her sons to be happy.
She never talks shit. I'd be like, I'm gonna talk shit real quick, Rochelle. And she's like,
look away.
There's been like maybe 2 times I've gotten her to kind of admit she doesn't like something about someone. And when she does, I was like, ooh, she must really not. If she's like admitting it.
If she gives that little tiny bit.
It up.
Yeah.
I'm like,
yeah.
Because if Rochelle told me, Rochelle could literally just say to me, don't mess with that girl. And I'd be like, oh, fuck, I'm out. I don't even ask
who did they kill? What did they do? It must be really bad. Yeah, you're right. I can see that. I adore her. She's such a sweetie. But we were talking about it's summertime and we were talking about how busy like my kids are and stuff. And I don't think it's necessarily intentional. I just know like my kids ask to do a lot of stuff. They ask to they love staying at home. They love just being in pajamas. Like they enjoy that. But I also know that they like to like spend time with their friends and go to Girl Scout camp and that kind of thing. And my oldest one, she's 13 And she's been going to Girl Scout camp since she was I think she was in 2nd grade when
I
she
tell you,
started doing
every time you bring up Girl Scouts, I'm like, that was my favorite hands down camp ever.
That's her favorite. She still asks every year to go to this one particular camp. They've been to Girl Scout camp at a couple different locations, and the one that she goes to the most consistent, she's gone to the longest. And she has a group of girlfriends, and every year, like it's usually in January or February, they all like text each other or message. They used to Facebook Kids Messenger. That's how long they've been friends. And so before they were allowed to have phones. And so they all message each other on there, and they're like, okay, what week are we doing camp? Like, ask your mom. And they like get together and they just tell us what week we're doing it. And so we always just book, the moms always book for that week. But like one of them, like we're in North Carolina, and one of them drives up from Florida. Another one comes from like Georgia. Like they're from states away, and they come to this so that these girls can hang out. And I just love it. I think that's such a cool thing that they still get together and do, that they've been doing since they were like, gosh, like 6, 7 years old.
I don't talk to any of the girls, like talk to, like I'm Facebook friends, but I remember all the girls I went to Girl Scout camp with.
Yeah.
It's so weird. It's like one of the main things that really stuck from like even elementary school memory, I remember. Mm-hmm.
I went to camp one summer. It was to a church camp, and I didn't enjoy it because it was a lot of like manual labor. Like we had like, it was like a trailblazing camp or something. We basically had to like clear like hiking paths, and it sucked. I know. I was like, I'm not doing that again.
I did the Salvation Army's one, and you went away for a week, and you were gone, and there were bunk beds and everything, and there was a lot, not a ton, but there was religious stuff. But my mom got it in for free. I think because we might have been poor back then.
Yeah, you like
I would go for like a week, and it was I'd always bring a girlfriend with me. But it was, I remember that one being fun too. Mm-hmm. It was good. I don't remember, they didn't make us do like, they had activities all day. Yeah. So I don't know if the Salvation Army still does it, but it was, I remember theirs was fun too. It wasn't as fun as Girl Scouts, but it was fun.
Yeah, that was my only like camp experience I had, was that one. It was through a church, and like the Methodist church that we went to, and basically they broke us up like into groups, and it was whatever group like you were signed up for, like your parents I guess signed you up for it with that. So but yeah, our group, like it was I remember it was trailblazing, and like we did that every day of camp. We had to go like clear these paths in the woods, and I was like, this is horrible. And I was like, I never want to do this again.
Because so ours was more, ours is still there. Like you can drive by and see the Salvation Army's camp, like because they have actual teepees up. Mm-hmm. They're huge. You can see them on the fence. Because one night you would camp out in the teepees.
Oh, okay.
Other nights you stayed in the cabins. Mm-hmm. So maybe it's because there was more structure. They had like an in-ground pool.
Yeah, we didn't have
from
that.
Activity to activity all day.
I don't know if they, as far as I know, I don't know. Well, I mean, at least our group, we didn't have like activities, like fun stuff like that. We had like, it was like a work camp. We had a big house that we stayed in, and it was divided like boys. It was like, it was tough. I remember getting in the car on the way home and crying. I remember because I was just so relieved I didn't have to be there anymore. I was like,
those crazy camps people send their kids to.
Yep, that's exactly when we were watching that thing about, when they were talking about the camps and stuff, like like Paris Hilton's camp and shit she talked about like that. When we were watching it, I was like, okay, that's exactly what this shit was like, except it was in the fucking woods and we had to chop down trees.
I'm a snitch. I'd be calling my mom. I'd be like, Mom, come get me.
Dude, this was before that. Like there was, I remember, okay, so one of the girls in our group, I remember she was diabetic. And this was before like digital monitors. I'm like 10 years older than you. So this is like, you would have been, think about being like 5, and I would have been 15, and I'm at this camp. And I remember we would have to go to the nurse's station every day so that this girl that was in our group could get a shot of insulin. I had to go with her. And before we could go out to the trails and stuff, she had to get a shot of insulin. And I remember that was the only phone they had was in the infirmary. That was the only phone. And I remember thinking, like, I guess I could call home. Like, would it have to be really hurt before they would let me call home? Like, I had that thought too. It's like, come get me. Yeah, that was wild. But, and my youngest one, Hallie, she had a a bad experience like 2 years ago. One of the camps they went to, they had a really bad problem with horseflies that year. And like I think it just scarred her because she did go back the next year and she was like, yeah, I don't ever want to go back. And so she was fine, like not going to Girl Scout camp again. So instead, we signed her up for like this art camp that's local. One of the art teachers at the elementary school teaches it, and it's at her house. Like she has a big pottery studio. So it's her and like 10 other girls, and they like make pottery and stuff. And so she's loving that. So that's what she's doing this week. So it's just, it's hard to juggle, 2 kids with different activities on top of like, I still work full time, and, I have other stuff going on, like just with, we're going to Book Bonanzas coming up, and then I'm going to Mexico for a little while. And like, I don't know, it's just everything. I feel like everything's happening all at once, but I'm hoping like that I'll be able to take a breath at some point soon. Yeah. So
our kids, mine aren't doing. Isabel does her own thing. I hardly see her sometimes, and Peyton stays in his room, except all the boys seem to come to our house. And I asked him the other day because it was actually somebody's birthday, and I was dropping them off, and he was like, the birthday kid and like 2 other boys come back. I'm like, don't usually you stay the night at the birthday person's house?
Yeah.
Like, no, they want to come here. I'm like, okay, well, and then later I asked, I was like, why do you guys always want to come here?
Yeah.
Which I'm glad, because he hasn't spent the night at somebody's house yet.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So he's never asked. Everybody always comes to our house. Yeah. And he's like, what do you mean? He was like, there's no rules here. We can eat whatever we want. And there's a castle next door. Talking about him. And I was like, there's rules here. He's like, you don't, I guess at other people's houses, like I don't shut off the kitchen or make them ask for things.
Yeah.
And they run around and I'm not like, go to bed. Because I can't even hear them anyways. I just take my hearing aids out.
Yeah, true.
But I was like, they are, because then they were here and they come back at like 11 o'clock and they have all this chicken. Like to-go containers. Yeah. I was like, where did you guys get this? We're like, we got Papa to take us to go get chicken. I was like, it's 10:30 at night. I was like, no wonder they come over here.
I was going to say,
take us to go get chicken at 10:30 at night.
And he did. I bet your dad loved that, though.
Oh,
I bet your dad
That's why I didn't even get on to him. He likes that stuff when they call for certain things.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I'll do it. I'll go.
Oh, tell me, did he get the baby deer? So Mel sent me a picture the other day, and she called her dad a Disney princess because he's out in the yard trying to be. It's a video of him trying to befriend.
And if you guys remind me to post the video of him
in headquarters, in our Facebook group.
Well, my mom thought there was a cat meowing, crying, so she went out because she's got a bunch of field in the back, and she went all out there by her planters and stuff, and she couldn't find it. And my dad went out there and he found it. It was a deer.
It's a baby deer.
It was a baby deer.
It was so
I haven't asked in the past few days, but he fed it.
Did he really?
But I mean, there's a high chance it's gonna die.
Oh no! Why?
Because I drove around to see if I could see if the mom had been hit or something.
Yeah.
And I couldn't find it. And generally, if a mom abandons the deer, it's likely sick.
Oh, so, don't say that. Maybe it's lost.
It may not be. I haven't asked any checkups. I went and I got the oatmeal or goat milk. I do go to Walmart and get goat milk for him. But he's out there like feeding it. And I'm like, the man with the hunting cabin is out there feeding a baby deer.
That's what I was going to say. Did he bottle feed it? Is that what it was?
Yeah, he bottle fed it.
Oh.
So, and now he's all like super protective over it. My dad, and Rob said the other day, he's like, he's like transferring shit from like your sister's trauma stuff right now.
Onto that.
And trying to protect it. Because he like yelled at Isabel about taking the 4-wheeler over there yesterday.
Oh.
Like, riding the 4-wheeler over there.
All of a sudden, he's got a little baby he's taking care of. That's sweet, though. He is like a Disney princess. When
I seen him out there with that deer, because he got it to come to him. He's like laying on the ground, and it slowly came to him.
Yeah, he's literally sitting on the ground and holding his hand out, and the little baby's walking up to him. And I'm like, there's something about your dad. I guess that's trusting, The little animal was like,
that's all I've been calling him for the last week is Disney princess. I'm like, how's the Disney princess doing?
Just collecting all the animals. Listen, I know how he feels. Okay, first it's a deer. Next thing you know, you got 6 cats, 4 dogs.
But what I love about him is he complains about it. Like, whenever he likes doing something, he'll complain about it. He'll be like, oh, this kid's got me out of bed at like 10. I was just about to go to sleep.
Yeah. 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 I bet he hated that. I bet he was so mad.
That damn cat. He complains about Ollie's cat all the time, even though he's playing with it constantly.
Yeah. I was going to say,
playing with that
have
cat.
you seen that video of like, there is an old man like holding a dog, and it's like he's holding it like a baby and like talking to it. And it's like, nobody loves a dog like a dad that didn't want it. I was like, yep.
He's like, that's exactly true. The cat needs to come in. Where's the cat? I'm like, for a cat you don't like, you're always playing and messing.
You're always wanting to know where this cat is. Wanting to know. Want to keep checks on it. Oh, that's so sweet. Okay, well, let's talk about Rochelle. You want to? Yeah, let's do it. Rochelle Paige is the USA Today bestselling author of more than 50 books. She also co-writes with a friend under the USA Today bestselling name, Fiona Davenport. She absolutely adores reading, and her friends growing up used to tease her. Oh, and her friends growing up used to tease her when she trailed after them, trying to read and walk at the same time. Oh my God, that's so cute. She loves stories with alpha males, sassy heroines, hot sex, and happily ever afters. She is a bit of a genre hopper in both her reading and her writing. So far, she's written books in several romance subgenres, including new adult, contemporary, paranormal, and romantic suspense. She is the mother of 2 wonderful sons who inspired her to chase her dreams of being an author. She wants them to learn from her that you can live your dream as long as you are willing to work for it. I love her.
I love it.
I
can go on with wrecking all of her stuff. Like, I'm looking through it because I read all of Rochelle's stuff. There's nothing that she's written that I haven't wrote. Oh, you know what? This book, I just seen, I'm scrolling through. So there's a book called Charity. It's the part of that Black Mountain Academy that people were writing for. They had the red covers.
Oh, yeah.
I won some auction for it, and she was like, I got to name a character in her book.
Did you really?
Yeah, so I got to name the hero, and I named it because I was like, oh, I have to come up with a unique name.
Yeah.
So I gave it Corby, because that's my dad.
Oh, after your dad? Oh, that's your dad's name.
So she named him Corby King. I forgot about that.
Oh, that's awesome.
A really cute one. Her Shifter series is really good. She has one, her Wolf's ones, it's Fated Mates.
So that one she actually has free this week. It's from June 19th to the 23rd. It's the Black River Pack series box set. The whole box set's free right now. It's Crying Wolf, Shoot the Moon, and Thrown to the Wolves. All 3 of those it's in the box set for free. So we'll link that down in the show notes. That's a really good deal on those.
Yeah. She has the really good. Like, I've read that series a few times. There was one I thought I was going to hate. Like, I knew the book was coming up. I think it might be book 3. It's where he was fucking his mate, but he wouldn't, like, commit to her because he thought he was going to fade a mate. And I was like, I'm going to hate this book. But when I started reading, like, it's now my favorite in the whole series. Because I know, like, he's wanted her, and he's mad he's wanted her because he thinks he's supposed to have his own fated mate, which really we all know it's her.
Of course.
But I'm like, this grovel is going to be so good. He, like, has to crawl through it all. And he didn't even really do anything that bad.
You just need him to commit. That was it. It was like his grovel is because he didn't commit faster. That's what he's sorry for.
Yeah.
She also said that Body Language, that the book you're about to listen to, is part of the Body and Soul series and crosses over with the Yeah Baby series that she wrote with Fiona Davenport. That she wrote as that. That's their pen name. And so if you like the book that you're about to hear today, you can check out the whole Body and Soul series that's connected with the Yeah Baby series. So yeah, make sure you get that too. And then if you want to find more from Rochelle, you can follow her in her Facebook reader group, Rochelle's Racy Readers. And she's also on Instagram and TikTok under @Rochelle Paige Author. And we'll have all that linked in the show notes. So like I said, the book you're about to listen to is called Body Language. And it is.
She has, sorry.
No, go ahead.
She has one that's like the Serenity Duet or something like that. I was trying to find it. It's 2 books. It's about the same couple. It's really good. Like the twist at the, like, that comes in the middle. They're both out, so it's not like, and it's not huge long read as a duet, but it's got a really good twist that you're like, oh shit. That's not like
now I need to know what it is. No, I know.
Together. I'll tell you after, but it's a good plot idea.
I want to know which series it is because maybe I've read this.
It's only 2 books. It's
okay.
I can find it. Gosh,
it's okay.
It's been so long.
All right, you look for it. I'm going to read the book bio for body language.
Okay.
Jessa Ames is shy and a bit of a klutz. Roman Thatcher is confident and athletic. They couldn't be more different, but they're also made for each other. This quiet beauty will learn there's more than one way to communicate when the language is love. Body Language was previously published as part of the Passion Vows and Babies Kindle World. So I didn't realize this was part of a Kindle World. So that's good to know. Okay. So I guess this was re-released under this alone as Body Language, and now you get to listen to it for free on the podcast. You're welcome, lady listeners. All right. Did you find the book?
I think it's called, God damn it, Fortuity Duet.
Oh, okay. All right, cool.
So yes, there's 2 of them. There's a box. They're both in Kindle Unlimited. You can get the box set. It's just one. It's called that.
Okay.
So I'll put it in the show notes, but it's really sweet. So.
Of course it is. I love Rochelle. She's a great writer. She's got good stories. And like you said, there's always there's a little bit more to her stories. There's usually a little something extra in there that's not it's not as predictable as you would think it would be, sometimes with her stories, just straightforward. But there's always a sweet, obsessed heroes, happily ever afters. Of course. So yeah. So you guys are going to love this one. So you want to send them to it?
Yeah. We'll see you guys on the other side.
Bye.
This is Body Language by Rochelle Paige. Read for you by Jarman Day. Chapter 1. Jessa. Midway through answering the phone, I stopped and stared as Roman Thatcher pushed through the glass doors leading into the reception area where I worked. I felt the heat in my cheeks as they pinkened, which wasn't a surprise considering how my heart raced at the sight of the man I'd been crushing on ever since he'd been hired a month ago. I should have been used to being surrounded by hot alpha males, since pretty much every guy Xander Gray, my boss, hired fit that description to a T. Roman took that hotness to a whole new level, at least as far as I was concerned. He commanded attention when he walked into a room, and it wasn't just because he was 6'3" with lean muscles. He had piercing blue eyes that appeared to catalog every detail around him in a split second. His dark hair was about an inch overdue for a cut, and he only bothered to shave on days when he had a meeting with a new client. It was the only concession he made, though, because I'd never seen him bother with a suit like the other guys did when they were trying to impress a bigwig because there's a lucrative security contract at stake. Except for today, when he showed up in a 3-piece black suit that looked like it had been tailored for his body and stole the breath right out of my lungs. The buzzing in my ear finally pulled me out of my stupor, and I realized that I hadn't gotten past saying good morning to the caller who'd just hung up. Staring at Roman might have been my favorite new pastime, but it was also heck on my concentration. Darn it, I muttered to myself. Roman stopped in front of my desk to stare down at me. Everything okay, beautiful? Uh-huh. He tilted his head to the side, studying my face with laser focus. You sure? Uh-huh. I repeated, because actual words were beyond my ability at the moment. Thatcher, my office, now. Xander barked out from behind me, startling me since I hadn't heard him open the door. I jumped in my chair, swiveling around to look at him as I let out a little yelp. Mid-turn, my elbow smacked into a pile of folders in the corner of my desk and knocked them onto the floor. Scrambling out of my chair, I knelt down to pick them up and barely stopped myself from falling over when I lifted my head and realized I was eye level with Roman's pants seam. I could see his hard length pressing against it. I quickly dropped my gaze, the blush in my cheeks turning into an inferno, and swallowed nervously when he bent down to help me with the mess I'd made. I've got it, I whispered. I'm not going to walk past without helping you. Uh-huh, I breathed out again. Those the folders I asked you for yesterday, Jessa? Xander asked. I tore my gaze away from Roman and nodded at my boss. Bring those files in with you, Roman, he ordered, turning on his heel and leaving us alone. Roman tugged the lone file I'd picked up out of my hand, added it to the stack he already had, and then helped me to my feet. His masculine scent wrapped around me, turning my legs to jelly. I dropped down into my chair and stared at his butt when he turned to follow after Xander. "Thank you," I finally managed to squeak out as the door shut behind his broad back. "Hey, Jessa," Callista called out to me softly. I turned to find her looking at me with a teasing look in her eyes. "You want to work out with me tonight? Run through some more self-defense moves? Give you a little boost of confidence. So maybe you'll do something about those looks you keep giving the new guy?" "Yeah, that would be great," I agreed. Callista meant well, but it didn't matter how many lessons she gave me. I'd never get the nerve up to flirt with Roman. I was too shy to ever make the first move with anyone, let alone a guy who was so far out of my league that it wasn't even funny. That wasn't the reason I'd asked her for help, but I'd avoided telling anyone about what was going on. I knew that if I talked to Callista about it, she'd fill Xander in on the story, because he wasn't just the boss to her. He was her doting husband. But they had their own things going on with their beautiful 2-month-old baby, and I didn't want to be a bother at a time when they should be focused on their family. Besides which, my situation wasn't anything to panic about. I'd received a couple of notes that weren't signed, and one weird voicemail message that I wasn't too sure about. Plus, there was a middle-of-the-night hang-up on my cell last night. It wasn't anything to worry about, or at least that's how I tried to rationalize it. At first, I thought that maybe I had a secret admirer, and for a brief moment, I'd hoped that it was Roman. But then reality had set in, and I knew it couldn't be him because he was the kind of guy who'd take the direct approach with the woman he was interested in dating. I'd gotten hints here and there that maybe he was sort of attracted to me, but nothing had come of it, so I was sure it was just wishful thinking. Forcing a smile onto my face, I tried for a change of topic to get the focus off me before I blurted out the jumbled mess of thoughts swirling around my brain. "No Madison this morning?" Callista had only started back to work for a few hours a day a couple of weeks ago, and she always brought the baby in with her. She and Xander weren't ready to send her to daycare, and neither of them liked the idea of hiring a nanny. Considering his experiences in the Secret Service and hers with the CIA, I couldn't really blame them. They'd seen too much to trust strangers with their baby, not even with the kind of background checks they could pull. Margaret came over to the house to watch her for me this morning. "Xander has a meeting off-site, so I'm going to hang around and play boss while he's gone," Callista explained. "It isn't playing when you really are one of the bosses," I pointed out. And it wasn't like any of the guys gave her a hard time, because she'd more than proven herself to them when she'd shot a client's stalker after taking a bullet in the shoulder. Why am I not surprised that my grandmother is putting her retirement to good use? Sneaking in all those baby cuddles while I'm not around to steal Madison away from her? We're lucky that she's back from Europe and available to help out. "Lucky my foot," I mumbled. "I'm willing to bet she planned it that way." "That's not a bet I'd take," Callista laughed. The two women had gotten to know each other fairly well after my grandmother had recovered from her appendectomy and spent a couple of months training me as her replacement before she retired as Xander's assistant. She was the only person who'd been allowed to babysit Madison so far, on the night she'd turned 6 weeks old, so Xander and Callista could have a night out. Since I'd moved in with my grandmother to be closer to work, it meant I'd gotten to spend some time with the baby too, but only a little. She's greedy when it comes to Madison. I think she let me hold her for a grand total of maybe 15 minutes when we watched her for you guys. My baby girl might be my favorite topic in the world, but that doesn't mean I'm going to forget about our workout session tonight," Callista warned. Or, she was cut off by the ringing of the phone. "Saved by the bell," I mumbled as I grabbed for it. Without Roman around to distract me, I was able to get my full greeting out and give a new client directions to our office without sounding like a bumbling idiot. If only I could figure out how to manage that when he was around. Chapter 2. Roman. I thought for sure she'd gotten over her nervousness and settled in a little, but I swear that girl has been jumpier lately than when she first started here, Xander muttered, shaking his head as I settled into the chair across his desk from him. I leaned forward in my seat, narrowing my eyes at him as I growled, "She isn't that bad." He held up his hands in a sign of surrender. "No need to jump to her defense, Thatcher. It's not like I'm going to fire Jessa. She's part of the Gray security family." I relaxed again and flashed him a sly smile. Plus, Callista would kick your ass if you did. She'd be the only one who might succeed in that endeavor. He snorted. But we both know you'd be the first to try. I crossed my arms and raised an eyebrow in question, acting like I didn't understand the implication. I'd never been one to overly share personal information, and my time in the army had only sharpened that instinct. It didn't deter Xander, though. Try and deny it all you want, but the bigger they are, the harder they fall. I sank back in my chair and shook my head. Like you can talk. You're an inch taller than me. You're not going to hear me denying that I fell hard for my woman. I think you'll find there's no shame in that. He lifted a folder off the top of the pile I'd brought into the office with me and rifled through it. If you're going to stay on here permanently, then you might want to man up. I ignored the jab at my pride, knowing damn well that he was just trying to get a rise out of me, so I'd admit to my interest in Jessa. Instead, I focused on the purpose of our meeting this morning, my 1-month performance review. If I stay on, does that mean you're not sure about your decision yet? Nah, the 1-month trial run was a formality more than anything else. I knew you were qualified before I interviewed you, and you fit in well with the team since you've been here. The position is yours for as long as you want it. I felt a deep sense of relief that had more to do with the woman sitting in the receptionist chair than knowing I got to keep the job that I'd come to enjoy so much. If things hadn't worked out with Xander, then I'd either have to hunt for another position in Atlanta or take the one I'd been offered in Chicago, working for an army buddy of mine who'd started up his own security company several years ago. It was something I'd seriously considered, but my preferences had been to stay in my hometown because it was familiar. Now, it was to stay close to Jessa. As much of a pussy as it made me, since I hadn't even asked her out on a date yet. Damn, my reaction to her had knocked me for a loop when I first saw her the day I'd come in for my interview. The tiny blonde packed a punch to my libido. When she blinked up at me with those innocent brown eyes, blushing like she had a direct line to the filthy thoughts running through my brain about her, I wanted nothing more than to skip my interview, toss her over my shoulder, and take her back to my new apartment. Since she'd barely been able to stammer out a hello, and I hadn't wanted to scare the shit out of her, I reined in my caveman impulses and swore to take it slow with her. But I hadn't considered that I'd make virtually no progress at all in a month's time. I'll take it. Good, Xander clipped out. We have a potential new client coming in at 10 o'clock who I'd like you to meet with. I have a meeting I need to head to, but Callista will be here if any issues pop up. Will do. He lifted up a manila envelope to hand it to me. Jessa must have gotten this mixed up with the folders I needed. I glanced down and noticed that it was addressed to her and already slit open at one end. Xander tilted the envelope as he handed it to me, and the contents spilled onto his desk. When what I was seeing registered, my entire world tipped on its axis. What the fuck? I growled. Snatching the photos off his desk, my blood pressure rose as I looked through them. They seemed innocent enough at first glance, since they were shots of her going about her day, but I didn't like the idea of some guy taking pictures of Jessa when she didn't know about it, or even if she did. One was of her crossing the street in front of the office. Another was of her sitting in the coffee shop down the street. A third was of her opening the front door to the house she shared with her grandmother. They were all taken from a distance, and they'd come to the office in an envelope addressed to her without a return address or postage. Worst of all, there was a note on the back of the photo taken where she lived. It said that the sender was keeping his eye on her. She's got a stalker. I shoved the picture with the note at Xander so he could see what it said. Fuck, you're right. She does, he agreed. I don't like that he knows where she lives and works. It pisses me the fuck off, I growled. He picked the envelope up for a closer look. Handwritten and addressed to Jessa, no postage and no return address. You know what that means. He's been in this building, maybe even our offices. Possibly even dropped it on her desk himself, Xander added. Fucking A, I gritted out, pacing back and forth while I tried to pull myself together. Every protective instinct in me had risen to the surface. This wasn't some random client we're talking about. It was Jessa, my woman. I paused in front of him when Xander grabbed his phone and punched in a number. Get me a copy of the security tapes for the last few days. The street, entrance, elevators, hallway in front of my office, front reception area, mailroom. He rattled off. Everything you've got, and I want them on my desk as fast as fucking possible. I'll want to see them too, I told him after he hung up. He nodded. Consider it done. Forget the new client meeting you are going to take. I want Jessa's case to be your top priority. As if there was ever any question about it. Xander could have tried to assign another employee to her, and it wouldn't have made the least bit of difference to me. I'd have just quit and taken care of her on my own. Her safety was my responsibility. Of fucking course. That's what I thought. He chuckled dryly. You'll want around-the-clock coverage on her, so I'll assign a couple of teams to you as well. Just one, I corrected him. We have a lot on our plates here already, and it would stretch our resources too thin. Still able to use logic while your heart is involved. That right there is why there wasn't a question about you working here permanently. I barely noticed the compliment. My mind focused on building a plan to keep Jessa safe. I'm going to take her up to a cabin I own in Kentucky, and I'll reach out to a guy I knew in the Army who has his own firm up in Chicago to ask him to set a team down as well. It sucks that she's got a stalker, but it's not altogether horrible since it finally lit a much-needed fire under your ass. Shut the fuck up, I muttered as I stormed out of his office and headed straight for my woman. With her in danger, I couldn't give her any more time before I made my move. Chapter 3. Jessa. The door to Xander's office flew open, and I jerked in my chair, sending it rolling backwards. In the short time it took me to put my feet on the ground to stop myself before I banged into the wall, Roman had crossed over to me. With an arm wrapped around my waist, my feet lifted right back off the floor when he picked me up until we were nose to nose. Grab your things, we're leaving. Things? Leaving? I echoed softly, shaking my head. Now, he ordered, setting me on my feet and giving me a soft slap against my butt that made me stumble forward. Eve! I yelped. Fuck it, he growled before yanking me against his side and dragging me with him to my desk. My jaw dropped open when he went straight for the drawer where I kept my purse, grabbed it, and shoved it into my arms. Then he hefted me up and over his shoulder and stormed out of the office. I lifted my head before the door shut behind us, only to find Xander and Callista leaning against each other near my desk. Xander smirked at us, and Callista offered me a small wave. I don't understand what's going on, I finally whispered after Roman set me into the passenger seat of his truck. But he buckled me in and shut the door without offering an explanation. Roman? He reached over and slid his palm against mine. It isn't safe here. I'll explain when we get to your grandmother's house. Oh no, I groaned, my stomach tying itself up in knots. I could only think of one reason why he'd think it wasn't safe for me to be at the office. I squeezed my eyes shut, refusing to look at him, and he tightened his hold on my hand. Neither of us said a word during the short drive, and I found myself wishing it was longer when he pulled up to the curb. That feeling didn't last long, though, because too soon I was being nudged into my bedroom by Roman. It bore repeating. I was in my bedroom with Roman. What the heck is going on? I squeaked out. I don't want to scare you. Too late, I mumbled. With one long finger, he tilted my chin up and searched my face. I must have seemed like a crazy man when I dragged you out of the office, but I swear that the only reason I did it was to get you somewhere safe as quickly as possible. I would never do anything to hurt you, beautiful. I know, I sighed. Good. His blue eyes filled with relief. Because I'm going to need you to trust me. Staring up at him, I lost track of what we'd been talking about. Huh? Why? You may want to sit down for this. He led me over to the bed, and settled us next to each other on the edge of the mattress. A package was delivered to the office for you today. It had some pictures in it. Pictures of what? A muscle jumped in his jaw, and his expression hardened. You. Me? My brow wrinkled in confusion. What kind of pictures? He pulled a manila envelope out of the inside pocket of his jacket, pulled out 2 photos, and handed them to me. I glanced down and heaved a sigh of relief. I don't understand. These are just of me going about my day. On the surface, they don't seem that bad. He conceded as he yanked a third out of the envelope, flipped it over, and showed me the note in the back side. But the person who's behind these knows your routine. He's been close enough to you to get this package on your desk. And not only does he know where you live, he made a point to let you know that he knows where to find you. Oh, I puffed out. My hands trembled so hard that the pictures I was holding started to shake. Roman took them from me, tossed everything onto the bed, and then took my hands in his. It doesn't matter what he knows about you, if he tries to get to you, or what he hopes to accomplish. I'm not going to let anything bad happen to you, Jessa. Okay, I gulped. His hold on my hands tightened. Can you trust me to do that? My mind was swirling in confusion, but I had no doubts about Roman. Uh-huh. Then go pack a bag, beautiful. He helped me to my feet and moved towards the doorway. I'm sure Xander or Callista will fill your grandmother in when they pick Maddie up, but I'll leave a note for her with my number so she can reach you, since I want you to leave yours behind. You do? He turned back to look at me. Yeah. If this guy gets a hold of your phone number, then he might be able to track it. My eyes got big as his explanation registered. Oh. Oh, what? He asked, taking a couple of steps back into the room. Well, you see, you keep acting like you're afraid to talk to me, and I'm going to think you're lying about trusting me. It's not that, I sputtered. It's just that I get, well, a little nervous around you, that's all. You're the last person who needs to be nervous around me, beautiful. Okay, I whispered. But I do need to know what went through your head that had those pretty brown eyes of yours as wide as saucers. Oh yeah, that. I took a deep breath and blurted it out. I've gotten a couple of strange notes. One at work and another in the mailbox here. Nothing scary, just a little weird because they weren't signed. There was a voicemail message, too. It wasn't a voice I recognized, and they didn't say much. Just my name, really. And then last night, I got a hang-up call in the middle of the night. You've got to be fucking kidding me, he grumbled, stalking forward until he stood right in front of me. The anxiousness I felt at the frustration on his face must have been obvious, because he gentled his expression and sighed deeply. You've kept this all to yourself, haven't you? I nodded. He rubbed his palms over his face in frustration. You're employed by the best security company in the Atlanta area, Jessa. Why in the hell didn't you tell anyone at work what was going on? I thought about telling Callista, but I didn't want to be a bother. I shrugged. And I didn't think it was that big of a deal. Not until you showed me the note on the back of that last picture. I swear that if I'd gotten something like that in the mail, I would have said something right away. Bending low, he dropped his forehead against mine. His blue eyes were serious as they gazed into mine, and I was incredibly flustered by his closeness, but also more aware of him than I'd ever been of any other person in my entire life. I want a promise from you, Jessa. You have any problems that are worrying you, from now on you come to me with them. Can you do that for me? But don't, he rasped. I know what you're going to say, but the last thing you are is a bother to me. I'd be fucking honored to be the man you turn to when you need help. I wasn't sure exactly how it happened. It was like my lips had a mind of their own. Instead of giving him the promise he wanted, one I was more than happy to provide, I found myself rising up on my toes to press my mouth against his in a soft kiss. It must have been answer enough for Roman, though. He quickly took control of the kiss, and it went from soft and gentle to hard and demanding in the blink of an eye. Chapter 4. Roman. Jessa's hesitant touch of her lips to mine wasn't the answer I'd been looking for. It was way fucking better. Her kiss told me without words that she was going to trust me with her problems, trust me to keep her safe, trust me with her body. Triumph raced through my system, and I pulled her into my arms as I crushed my mouth over hers. She didn't put up any resistance to me taking over the kiss. Instead, her arms locked around my neck, and she pressed her body against mine. When her lips parted, a deep groan rumbled up my chest. I was getting my first taste of her, and it was beyond what I'd imagined. Which I'd done more often than I cared to admit over the last month, jacking off to fantasies of her until my palm was sore. But the timing was shit, because I needed to get her out of town before her stalker realized that we were onto him. Her safety came before anything else. I allowed myself another minute to enjoy the kiss, my tongue tangling with hers, and my hands palming her ass, before I tore myself away and stepped back. Pack your shit, beautiful. Enough for at least a week. If I had my way, and I fully intended to, Those bags were going to come to my place when we were back in town, after this was all taken care of, quickly followed by the rest of her stuff, because I had no intention of letting her go now that I had her. Uh-huh, she sighed with a dazed expression on her face. She had a habit of saying that, one that I'd always found cute. But with the way she looked now, with her cheeks flushed and her lips swollen, it was sexy as fuck. I forced myself to turn around and walk out of the room before I ignored the danger she was in and tossed her on the bed. As I walked through the living room and into the kitchen, I spotted a stack of mail on the counter. Without any remorse, I picked it up and thumbed through the envelopes, pausing on one from a doctor's office. It was addressed to Jessa, but I hadn't heard anything about her being sick. After a quick glance over my shoulder, I pulled my knife out of my pocket and slit the envelope open. A quick peek inside alleviated my concern over her health, and had my cock pressing against my zipper. My innocent girl had made herself an appointment with a gynecologist. They'd sent new client intake forms, along with some brochures for different forms of birth control for her to read before she met with the doctor tomorrow. She was going to miss it since we'd be in Kentucky by then, at my cabin, where I didn't have any condoms because I never brought anyone there with me. Ever. Until Jessa. Hell, I didn't even have any condoms in my apartment or my truck. Not a single one in my wallet, either. It'd been more than a year since I'd been even remotely interested in hooking up with a woman. Probably another year more than that since I'd been with anyone. When I made the decision not to re-up in the Army and move back home, I figured I'd have plenty of time to get back into the dating game. But then I met Jessa. And even just the idea of being near another woman left my cock limp and my balls trying to crawl back inside my body. It had made me look at my dry spell in a new light, that's for damn sure. She was well worth however long it took to woo her into my bed and my life. That's what I kept reminding myself each time she blushed and stammered her way through an interaction with me. For a man who'd been known for his patience in the military, it was in short supply whenever I was near Jessa. But now that she was going to be under my roof, sleeping in my bed, the time for waiting had come to an end, and I needed to solidify my position in her life by keeping her safe, and with sex, lots and lots of sex. Without condoms or the birth control she'd planned on getting, which had damn well better have been for me and not some other guy. I growled at the thought, my hands clenching and my muscles clenching. All done?" she whispered from behind me. I turned to face Jessa, and she took a step backwards when she got a look at my expression. "Are you dating someone?" I hadn't meant to ask her the question that had me so pissed off, but I couldn't take it back now that it was out there. I was almost positive the answer was no, but even the smallest amount of uncertainty was enough to make me see red, or green, as the case may be, since my anger was 100% motivated by jealousy. "What? No. Why?" she sputtered. I unfisted my hand and showed her what I was holding. "Oh!" Her face turned bright red, and her gaze dropped to the floor. No, I thought it was something I should finally do, I guess." Since I'd already decided that the time for waiting was over, I pushed a little more. "Because someone caught your attention?" Her dark eyes jerked up to me, looking startled, and then darted back to the floor. Yeah, maybe." Stepping into her space, I slipped my hand along her shoulder and up her neck to cup her cheek. When I had her eyes on me again, I gave her an admission of my own. "After that kiss, you'd better mean me, beautiful. Because you haven't just caught my attention, you've owned it from the first time I saw you." "I do? Really?" she gasped. I bent low and rubbed my nose along hers, breathing my answer against her lips. "Yes, really." "Well." Her dark eyes widened in surprise, but they held curiosity in them too, and desire. But it was the innocence shining through that prompted my next question. "Are you a virgin?" Her aha was the best one yet, because it meant that I'd be the only man ever to have her, to taste her, to see every inch of her delicate skin, to be inside her. All mine, I rasped out before capturing her lips for another quick but hard kiss. When I lifted my head again, I had to close my eyes and count while I took several deep breaths to get myself back under control. My cock was so hard it'd probably have ridges imprinted from my zipper by the time we made up to my cabin, but now wasn't the time to do anything about it, And it sure as fuck wasn't the place, since I couldn't toss her on the floor of her grandmother's kitchen and pop her cherry. With a regretful sigh, I let go of her face and stepped away. We'd better get going. I want to make it to my cabin with enough time to stop and stock up on supplies, since I don't keep much up there. Cabin? What cabin? At her adorable look of confusion, I realized I hadn't filled her in on any of the plans I'd made. Get your sweet little ass into my truck, and I'll explain. Chapter 5. Jessa. After listening to Roman's explanation about how he was taking me to his cabin up in Kentucky because he felt it was the safest place for me to be, I took a long nap. It was only interrupted by one pit stop at a rest area to gas up and grab something to eat, until we hit a small town where we stopped to pick up a ridiculous amount of groceries. About 7 hours after we left my grandmother's house, I found myself standing in front of a cute log cabin nestled in the woods. This is yours? Yeah, I bought it 6 years ago after I re-enlisted in the Army. Got a great deal on it, too. I used my selective retention bonus and additional incentive because my military occupational specialty was considered to be in high demand. Put it all towards the down payment so that my mortgage is barely anything, he explained as he unlocked the door and held it open for me, all while carrying 3 bags of groceries without dropping anything as he did it. The inside was what you'd expect from a log cabin in the middle of the woods. He didn't have any pictures hung on the log walls, but the fans and wooden beams that stretched across the ceiling were eye-catching enough that it didn't really need anything more. The furniture was all oversized and broken-in brown leather. It had an open floor plan, with a granite counter splitting up the living area and the kitchen. The only spot of color was a burgundy throw rug in front of the fireplace. Why in the world didn't you just move here if you had all this waiting for you? I asked, sweeping my arm around in a circle. He shrugged as he set the bags on the counter. It was either that or Chicago, and Atlanta has always been home, so I went with what was familiar. I didn't know you grew up in Atlanta. Do your parents still live there? I asked, trailing after him as he headed back out to the truck to grab more bags. When I reached in to get my suitcase out, he yanked me back with a gentle tug on one of the belt loops of my pants. I told you, I've got it. I wasn't about to argue, not when the way he'd been acting all day had made me feel special, protected, cared for in a way nobody else had ever done. My parents moved down to Florida a couple of years ago. He finally answered as I trailed after him back into the cabin while he carried the rest of the groceries and my bag. Do you have any other family in Atlanta? And why was Chicago an option? My questions earned me a big smile that made me ask, what? I like this chatty version of you. It means you're more comfortable around me. Well, after that kiss, I'd almost have to be, wouldn't I? I mumbled. Good point. He quickly tossed the cold items into the freezer and fridge, but left everything else on the counter. Then he stalked towards me with a sensual gleam in his blue eyes. If a kiss gets you to open up to me a little, I wonder what making you come will earn me. Whoa. I exhaled, my panties going from their normal damp state whenever he was near to drenched in the blink of an eye. That doesn't sound like a no, beautiful, he whispered in my ear. And I've been dying to know what you look like when you come. I've pictured it in my head so many times. Do you want to show me how much better reality is than my fantasies of you? Uh-huh. I nodded, too. A new favorite. I didn't understand what he meant, but I didn't have time to wonder because he slid his palm down my belly to cup my pussy over my pants. But as much as I like it, I need you to say yes this time. I don't want there to be any doubt in either of our minds that you want this. I do, I gasped. I really, really do. He swept me up into his arms and carried me over to the couch. If we had more time, I'd take you to the bedroom. This'll have to do for now. I don't know why we didn't have more time, but I didn't really care. Not with the way he was pressing me against the cushions. This is perfect. No, you're what's perfect. He corrected as he undid the button on my pants, took care of the zipper, and slid them down my legs along with my panties. Feeling shy, I tried to close my legs, but didn't get far before he wedged his shoulders between them. My hips jerked off the cushions when he circled my clit with his thumb. "Oh my," I gasped. I was the only other person who'd ever touched me there, but it had never felt even half as good as what he was doing to me. "Gotta see what you feel like wrapped around my finger," he grunted. Then he slid a fingertip into my entrance, and I clenched around him. So fucking tight. "Roman," I moaned, wiggling my hips a little when he sunk about an inch inside me. "It's going to feel like you're strangling my cock when I pop your cherry." A ripple swept through me at the erotic promise, and I felt myself get wetter. "You like that, huh?" "Yeah. I'll have to remember to tell you all the dirty things I fantasized about doing to you over the last month. Torture you a little, the way you've done me by making me wait for you. But not right now, because my mouth's gonna be busy." "It is?" I dug my nails into his shoulders when he pulled his finger out of me, feeling empty, even though he'd only worked it a couple of inches inside. His only response was to flash me a naughty grin before he lifted one of my legs over his shoulder and lowered his head down to circle my clit with his tongue. I wasn't prepared for the surge of ecstasy that swept through my system as my body tightened. Then he slowly pushed a finger inside me, and I flew apart, clamping down hard against it as I screamed out his name. He didn't let up until I was a limp mess. I could barely lift my head when he got up to grab a towel and clean me up. I whimpered in protest when he pulled my pants back up my legs, zipped them up, and shoved my panties into his pocket. But a loud knock interrupted me, and I was beyond grateful that Roman had put my clothes back in order when the door flew open and 2 men and a woman strolled inside. These guys are why Chicago was an option, and why we didn't have enough time for me to do everything I wanted to your sweet little body, he whispered in my ear as he helped me to my feet. I had a job offer there, similar to what I'm doing for Xander now, but for a guy I knew when I was in the Army, Brecken Kane. "Whit, Devon, Sarah." He greeted them, flinging his arm over my shoulders and pulling me into his side. "This is Jessa." "The client?" The woman, who I guessed had to be Sarah, asked. "Looks more like his woman to me," the guy in her right chimed in. "Damn straight," the other one agreed. "Which means we better get our asses outside and set up a perimeter. You know how these guys are when they've found the one," Sarah said, before yanking on each of the guys' arms and dragging them back outside. "Thank fuck," Roman sighed. "Now that Brecken's crew is here, I feel like I can relax. They're damn good at what they do. Between them and the guys Xander's sending up, I'll have people I trust at my back while I figure out who the dumbass is that thinks he can mess with you." I look up at him in confusion. 6 people to protect me from a guy who's made a few phone calls and sent some random pictures? Isn't that a little much? I refuse to take any risks when it comes to you. If I hadn't already fallen for him over the past month, I would have right then and there. Chapter 6. Roman. By the time I'd crawled into bed beside Jessa, it was after 2 o'clock in the morning and she was sound asleep. I would have much rather spent the night with her, but I'd wanted to personally oversee the security setup, and it had taken a while to get everything up and running. Not wanting to wake her up, I gently pulled her into my arms and held her during the 4 hours of sleep I allowed myself before I woke up to check in with Xander's guys again. Since they'd had the shorter drive to get to my cabin, I'd had them take the night shift on our protection detail, while Brecken's team headed into town to check into the closest motel. Nothing had happened when I'd slept, so their report was brief. Unfortunately, it was long enough that Jessa had woken up and was puttering around my kitchen, mumbling to herself when I walked back inside the cabin. My plan to crawl back into bed next to her and find a creative way to wake her up went out the window. But that didn't mean I wasn't going to enjoy the sight of her in my space, her hair mussed and wearing a pair of plaid pajama pants and a matching pink tank. Walking up behind her, I wrapped my arms around her waist and buried my face in her neck. If we forgot something when we did the supply run yesterday, I can send one of the guys to town to grab it for you this morning. "We basically cleared out the store," she grumbled. "There's nothing left for them to buy." "Beautiful," I sighed, turning her in my arms so I could look down at her face. "I can't fix it if you don't tell me what's wrong." "This kitchen was designed for a giant, that's what." I wanted to surprise you with breakfast, my specialty even. She opened a cabinet and pointed up at the top shelf. But I can't reach the damn waffle iron without climbing on the cabinet. I can get it down for you, I offered. I reached an arm out, but I dropped it when she swatted it. It's not just the waffle iron. There are all sorts of things up there I might need. I have to stretch all the way up to reach any of the pots and pans. I glanced over to where the rack hung from the ceiling and saw what she meant. And although I can get to the glasses, the plates and bowls are one shelf too high for me to reach. There's plenty of extra cabinet space. I opened some of the doors underneath the counter to show her that they were empty. I've just always used the higher-up ones so I didn't have to bend low to get to stuff when I needed it. Like I said, this kitchen was designed for a giant. She narrowed her eyes at me accusingly. You. I was tempted to shrug my shoulders, but I didn't want to piss her off any more than she already was. That's easy. Change whatever you want. I'm sorry, what? Move everything around so it's where you want it to be. But not by yourself. I don't want you climbing up on the counter, so tell me what needs to be moved and I'll do it for you. But it's your cabin, she argued. It should be the way you want it to be, not me. Since you're the first person other than me who's walked through that door since I bought the place, maybe you should think of the place as half yours. The first person? In 6 years? Half mine, she echoed. I yanked her, flesh against my body. Yes, yes, and yes. Oh my, she whispered before jumping up and wrapping her legs around my waist. When the wet heat of her pussy pressed against my cock, my control snapped. I carried her into the bedroom, shedding our clothes along the way. We were both naked by the time I dropped her onto the mattress. It's your turn for a yes, beautiful. Yes, yes, and please, yes. It was all the encouragement I needed to hear. I bent over her body and licked at her tits, my mouth hot and hungry against her silky skin. Her fingers tugged at my hair as I tongued her nipples into hard peaks before trailing lower. I circled her belly button and then headed straight for her clit and sucked it into my mouth. Roman, she moaned, digging her nails into my shoulders as she writhed beneath me. I have to make sure you're ready, I whispered against her damp skin. I slid a finger into her, stroking her higher and higher but not letting her come. Not until she was almost incoherent with pleasure did I let her splinter apart. Then I settled over her and sunk inside with one powerful thrust. When she tensed beneath me and let out a little whimper, I ran my hands through her hair, kissing her face and whispering about how amazing she felt, until she started to move restlessly again. I cautiously pulled out, watching her face for any signs of pain, and then pushed back inside her. Better than I ever could have imagined. Please, she whimpered. Need more. I began to move, slowly at first, enjoying the wet clench of her pussy walls as it tried to keep me inside. It didn't take long before I felt a tingling at my spine, and I lifted her legs up to wrap them around my waist and slid my hands under her ass to change up the angle, so I'd be sure to hit just the right spot as I picked up speed. Her head fell back onto her pillow, and her back arched off the mattress. Roman, she cried out, her pussy tightening to the point where I had to fight to get my cock back inside. I was seconds away from exploding, but I wasn't going to come without her. With one hand still lifting her ass up, my other trailed around her hip to pluck at her clit. So fucking wet and tight. I love how you feel wrapped around my cock. Come for me again, beautiful, now. Yes, she screamed, and her walls clamped down on my cock. I couldn't hold out any longer, and my climax roared through me. I buried myself deep inside her, cum pouring out of me in hot spurts. When I was finished, I groaned as I pulled out of her tight grip and dropped down on the mattress beside her, rolling her limp body into my arms. We lay there together, her head on my chest as our racing hearts settled and we caught our breath. I would have been happy to stay like that forever, except my stomach chose that moment to let out a loud growl. Those waffles you mentioned would come in handy right about now. I'll make them for you, she offered. But I want to eat them with whipped cream on top, and then I want to come back to bed and bring the rest of the can with us. Fuck the waffles, I growled, rolling off the mattress. Stay right where you are, and I'll grab the whipped cream. By the time she made the waffles, she had to use syrup instead, because we'd gone through the entire bottle in bed. Not that she complained. Chapter 7. Jessa. If it weren't for the fact that Roman had brought me to his cabin to hide me from whoever was stalking me, the week we spent there would have been the perfect vacation. The security teams patrolled the area and pretty much stayed out of our way, so it felt like we were the only two people in our little neck of the woods. Roman checked in with them several times throughout the day and had a few conference calls with Xander for status updates on the search for my stalker. But other than that, he spent all of his time with me. A lot of it was spent in bed together, but not just for sex. We talked a lot, about anything and everything. And I was surprised to learn that Roman liked to cuddle, at least with me. Any time I was near, it seemed like his hands were on me or I was in his arms. Even now, when he was teaching me how to shoot a handgun, he was basically wrapped around me while he showed me the proper stance. I think I've got it. Okay. He gave me a quick kiss on the side of my neck before taking the gun out of my hands, removing the clip, setting it down in front of me, and backing away. Show me. Closing my eyes, I took a deep breath to center myself. I'd never handled a gun before today. Even with everything Roman had taught me and knowing there weren't any bullets in the clip or chamber, I was still a little anxious. You've got this, beautiful. With Roman's encouragement, my nerves settled. I opened my eyes and reached for the gun. Picking it up in my right hand, I grabbed the clip in my left. I slid it in until I felt it click into place, and then I gave it an extra tap at the bottom with the palm of my hand for good measure. Then I cocked the gun, lifted my arms, and settled into the stance Roman had taught me. Lining up my shot at the target, I slid my finger onto the trigger and pulled. Exhaling a puff of air, I thumbed the button to eject the clip, caught it with my left hand to set it down, and then placed the gun next to it. Turning on my heel, I found Roman beaming a smile my way. I did okay? Perfect, he assured me. You're ready for live ammo next time around. I gulped at the idea, trying to swallow down the lump that suddenly appeared in my throat. If you're sure. I wouldn't let you do it if I wasn't. Alrighty then. That earned me a husky laugh as he pulled me into his arms. I'll show you how to load the clip until you're comfortable with it. You can consider that your homework for the night. Homework? Crap, I completely forgot. I slapped my forehead, feeling like an idiot. Forgot what? In all the craziness when we packed up, I didn't even bring my textbook with me. I think I stuffed my laptop into my bag, though. Come on. I tugged on his arm as I rambled aloud. I need to go check and see if it's there. Do you have Wi-Fi? I can't believe I've gone this long without even thinking about going online. I blame it on all the orgasms you've given me. They're like alcohol. They've killed a lot of my brain cells. Jessa, he snapped. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. What textbook and why do you need to go online? It better not be for email because that could be tracked, depending on what kind of skills this guy has. None of our leads have turned up anything yet, so we're no closer to knowing who this guy is. I'm taking a communications class online through Atlanta Metropolitan State College. It isn't for a degree or anything, I explained, but I figured it'd help make me a better receptionist, since I have to talk to clients all day. And sometimes that's a problem when I get flustered because well, you know how I am since I used to get that way around you all the time. When did you start taking the class? He asked. About a month ago. Otherwise known as about a week after he started working for Xander. I didn't admit to the fact that I'd hoped the class would help me when it came to interacting with more than just clients. My main motivation was that I wanted an edge when it came to talking to Roman. And the first note showed up a little more than a week later? He picked up the pace as we neared the cabin. Yeah. How does the class work? Do you ever have to go to campus? Only for my final exam, I answered. Well, except for when I went to the bookstore to buy a copy of the textbook. It had an online access code inside, so I can do most of it on the internet. But I learn better when I can highlight on the page while I read. What about your professor? Is he a guy? I shook my head. Nope, she's a woman. Do you have any interaction with the other students? This is starting to feel a little bit like an interrogation, I complained. He turned to glare at me as we walked inside the cabin, and I sighed. Yeah, we interact with each other. There's a discussion thread each week, and we're all supposed to comment on the posts of 2 other students. Luckily, I had mine done early last week and already made my comments, or else I'd get marked down for skipping that step. If I can get online in the next couple of days, I'll have enough time to make the due date for the next thread. This could be the connection we're missing. Roman dragged me into the kitchen and settled me onto a stool at the counter before he pulled his cell phone out of his pocket to call Xander. You've got her laptop, right? Great, pull up the browser. He turned his attention to me. Do you have the page you used to get into your class bookmarked? Yeah, it should be listed there, and it's probably in the ones I visit the most. Xander must have found it because he asked for my username and password. I rattled them off and tapped my fingers against the counter while I waited to see what they needed next. Look into each of them and get back to me. Uh-oh, that didn't sound good. Chapter 8. Roman. I stalked around the counter towards Jessa, my eyes pinning her in place when she fidgeted in her seat. You want to tell me about the post you did the first week of class? The one where you had to introduce yourself and share something personal? Yeah, it was just the usual. Who you are, why you're taking the class, that kind of stuff, she mumbled. And you were as fucking adorable as you always are, including in the photo you added to your profile, I bit out, my head feeling like it was about to explode at the thought of her sharing so much personal information on the internet. Which is probably why all the guys enrolled in your class chose to comment on your post. They did? I swiveled her stool around so her back was against the counter, and then I boxed her in with my arms. Every single one. Oh. Yeah, oh, I echoed. Her nose scrunched while she looked up at me with wide brown eyes that held a mixture of hope and fear. Do you think one of them might be the guy you're looking for? With any luck, they will be, I grumbled. That's good, right? Her expression cleared, and she smiled up at me. Maybe, I conceded. We finally have a list of names Xander is going to run down, so that's a plus. But if you had mentioned the class to me a week ago, he could have done all this back then. We might have already caught him, and you'd be out of danger. I'm sorry I didn't think of it sooner, she whispered. But really, you only have yourself to blame, because you distracted me by carrying me over your shoulder out of the office. How was I supposed to think clearly when you pulled a totally caveman move like that? I tried to bite back my smile at her little rant, but it wasn't possible. Not when she wagged her finger at me and continued. Then you kissed me and I could barely remember my name, let alone to mention a class I've only been taking for a little while where I've never met any of the other students face to face. You're right about your memory being faulty because it was you who kissed me, I corrected. Oh, please, she scoffed. I gave you a tiny peck on the lips, and the next thing I knew, your mouth was devouring mine. And that's a bad thing? I teased, any lingering frustration melting away at her sassiness. I loved how she only showed this side of her personality to me, and was still shy around Xander and Brecken's teams. Not even close. It was probably the best thing that ever happened to me. Probably. Should I try again until I get to a definitely? You're not going to see me arguing about an offer like that. She laughed. But the probably was more because I'm not sure I can pick which moment with you that's the best. Oh yeah? I asked, as I lifted her off the chair and carried her over to the couch. Dropping down onto the cushions, I settled her in my lap where she snuggled against me. Our first kiss was amazing, but so was the first orgasm you gave me. And the first time we had sex. But then it was even better with the whipped cream, so... Yeah, basically what I'm saying is that you're the best thing that's ever happened to me because you're a part of all those moments. Jessa. I shifted her around so I could look into her eyes, and my arms tightened around her. You know that I feel the same, right? She tilted her head to the side and narrowed her eyes at me. You think that you're the best thing that happened to me too? No, shit. I blame my lack of experience in sharing my feelings for why I was handling this so badly. But it was important to get this right, so I pushed forward no matter how uncomfortable I was. You've got it backwards, beautiful. You're the best thing that happened to me. Really? Fuck yeah. I pressed a hard kiss against her lips. Without a doubt. She melted against my chest, her head falling on my shoulder. Then I guess that I can't really be sorry it's taken this long for me to mention my class. If I'd said something the first day, then we might not have had to come to your cabin. And if we hadn't spent the last week together, then we would have missed out on the chance to discover how much we mean to each other. Nah, we would have become a couple no matter what. I was just biding my time until you were more comfortable around me. This situation just sped the process up a little bit. And damn, but if I didn't want to thank her stalker for putting our relationship into overdrive. After I kicked his ass, of course. She jerked upwards, her spine stiffening as she looked up at me with a glare. What do you mean you were biding your time? You were always so flustered around me. I was waiting until you were a little more comfortable, and then I was going to ask you out on a date. Her dark eyes narrowed. Since when? About a minute after I walked into the office, around the time when you stammered out a hello and almost fell out of your chair. All that time? Her forehead dropped against my chest. I'd finally gotten used to being around everyone in the office, but then you came along and I was always so awkward because I liked you. But I didn't need to be because you were interested. I chuckled, but it turned into a groan when she pinched one of my nipples. It pebbled underneath her fingers, and she shot me an irritated look. Don't get all sexy when I'm mad at you. It's all your fault I have a stupid stalker. How do you figure? I would never have taken that stupid class if it weren't for my reaction to you, that's why. If you'd asked me out on a date any time during that first week before I enrolled, I never would have done that stupid post in the first place. I flashed her a smug grin. I thought you said you signed up for it to improve your receptionist skills. Whatever, she grumbled. It's not like we both didn't already know that you're the reason why I did it. Chapter 8. Roman. I stalked around the counter towards Jessa, my eyes pinning her in place when she fidgeted in her seat. You want to tell me about the post you did the first week of class? The one where you had to introduce yourself and share something personal? Yeah, it was just the usual. Who you are, why you're taking the class, that kind of stuff, she mumbled. And you were as fucking adorable as you always are, including in the photo you added to your profile, I bit out, my head feeling like it was about to explode at the thought of her sharing so much personal information on the internet. Which is probably why all the guys enrolled in your class chose to comment on your post. They did? I swiveled her stool around so her back was against the counter, and then I boxed her in with my arms. Every single one. Oh. Yeah, oh, I echoed. Her nose scrunched while she looked up at me with wide brown eyes that held a mixture of hope and fear. Do you think one of them might be the guy you're looking for? With any luck, they will be, I grumbled. That's good, right? Her expression cleared, and she smiled up at me. Maybe, I conceded. We finally have a list of names Xander is going to run down, so that's a plus. But if you had mentioned the class to me a week ago, he could have done all this back then. We might have already caught him, and you'd be out of danger. I'm sorry I didn't think of it sooner, she whispered. But really, you only have yourself to blame, because you distracted me by carrying me over your shoulder out of the office. How was I supposed to think clearly when you pulled a totally caveman move like that? I tried to bite back my smile at her little rant, but it wasn't possible. Not when she wagged her finger at me and continued. Then you kissed me, and I could barely remember my name, let alone to mention a class I've only been taking for a little while where I've never met any of the other students face to face. You're right about your memory being faulty because it was you who kissed me, I corrected. Oh, please, she scoffed. I gave you a tiny peck on the lips, and the next thing I knew, your mouth was devouring mine. And that's a bad thing? I teased, any lingering frustration melting away at her sassiness. I loved how she only showed this side of her personality to me, and was still shy around Xander and Brecken's teams. Not even close. It was probably the best thing that ever happened to me. Probably. Should I try again until I get to a definitely? You're not going to see me arguing about an offer like that. She laughed. But the probably was more because I'm not sure I can pick which moment with you that's the best. Oh yeah? I asked, as I lifted her off the chair and carried her over to the couch. Dropping down onto the cushions, I settled her in my lap where she snuggled against me. Our first kiss was amazing, but so was the first orgasm you gave me. And the first time we had sex. But then it was even better with the whipped cream, so... Yeah, basically what I'm saying is that you're the best thing that's ever happened to me because you're a part of all those moments. Jessa. I shifted her around so I could look into her eyes, and my arms tightened around her. You know that I feel the same, right? She tilted her head to the side and narrowed her eyes at me. You think that you're the best thing that happened to me too? No, shit. I blame my lack of experience in sharing my feelings for why I was handling this so badly. But it was important to get this right, so I pushed forward no matter how uncomfortable I was. You've got it backwards, beautiful. You're the best thing that happened to me. Really? Fuck yeah. I pressed a hard kiss against her lips. Without a doubt. She melted against my chest, her head falling on my shoulder. Then I guess that I can't really be sorry it's taken this long for me to mention my class. If I'd said something the first day, then we might not have had to come to your cabin. And if we hadn't spent the last week together, then we would have missed out on the chance to discover how much we mean to each other. Nah, we would have become a couple no matter what. I was just biding my time until you were more comfortable around me. This situation just sped the process up a little bit. And damn, but if I didn't want to thank her stalker for putting our relationship into overdrive. After I kicked his ass, of course. She jerked upwards, her spine stiffening as she looked up at me with a glare. What do you mean you were biding your time? You were always so flustered around me. I was waiting until you were a little more comfortable, and then I was going to ask you out on a date. Her dark eyes narrowed. Since when? About a minute after I walked into the office, around the time when you stammered out a hello and almost fell out of your chair. All that time? Her forehead dropped against my chest. I'd finally gotten used to being around everyone in the office, but then you came along and I was always so awkward because I liked you. But I didn't need to be because you were interested. I chuckled, but it turned into a groan when she pinched one of my nipples. It pebbled underneath her fingers, and she shot me an irritated look. Don't get all sexy when I'm mad at you. It's all your fault I have a stupid stalker. How do you figure? I would never have taken that stupid class if it weren't for my reaction to you, that's why. If you'd asked me out on a date any time during that first week before I enrolled, I never would have done that stupid post in the first place. I flashed her a smug grin. I thought you said you signed up for it to improve your receptionist skills. Whatever, she grumbled. It's not like we both didn't already know that you're the reason why I did it. I promised to make it up to you. It might take a long time, she warned with a pout. That's okay, beautiful. We've got all the time in the world. We do? She whispered as my cell rang. Fuck yeah, we do. Now that I had her, I wasn't ever going to let her go. Chapter 9. Jessa. Just when our conversation was getting interesting with talk that sounded an awful lot like forever, his phone had to ring. Worst timing ever, I mumbled. I heard the masculine rumble of a deep voice coming from the phone, but it was too low for me to catch what was being said. I knew it was good news, though, when Roman heaved a sigh of relief. Thank fuck. You sure about the threat assessment? He offered me a reassuring smile when I sent him an inquisitive look. Yeah, I agree. Let me know what you think after your visit. If it goes well, then I'll let both teams go tonight. But Jessa and I will wait to drive back up until the morning. Was it Xander? What'd he say? Did they find the guy? Was it someone from my class? I asked as soon as he disconnected the call. Yes, it was Xander, he confirmed. They were going to trace the identities of each of the male students who commented on your post, but they didn't have to go that far. The first one they pulled up was a face Xander recognized from the security footage of the office building. They dug a little deeper and caught him on a street cam driving past her grandmother's house a few times. I would have found it hard to believe that it was as simple as that if I hadn't seen Xander in action myself over the past year. There was a reason his firm was so successful. He was damn good at his job. You said we might be able to go home tomorrow? Does that mean he isn't dangerous? Roman ran his hand up and down my spine. It was a gesture that was probably meant to be comforting, but it made me tremble instead. Only with desire instead of fear. It doesn't look like he'll be much of a threat, but Xander's going to pay him a visit to make sure. The kid's 18, no priors. Doesn't look like he has a lot of friends, judging by his social media accounts. No photos of him with girls posted anywhere. lives with his parents, nothing suspicious in his search history, and his porn preferences are normal for a guy his age. Xander thinks that maybe the kid didn't realize how creepy the calls and pictures would come across and was just trying to get up the nerve to ask you out. Whoa, I breathed out. I'm going to try to pretend that I don't know that Xander must have broken the law to get that kind of information so quickly and focus on the important thing. This is going to be over soon. If by this you mean you being in danger, then yeah. He flipped us over so I was laying on my back with him hovering over me. But if you mean us, then no. I like the sound of that. Good, then you'll like this too. He stood and started to strip out of his clothes. Kneeling up on the couch, my hands shook as I did the same with mine. I was down to my bra and panties when he moved in front of me, completely naked. His dick was fully hard, long and thick as it pointed up towards his stomach. The tip was glistening with pre-cum. Leaning forward, I flicked my tongue out and licked at the drop. I murmured as his hips jerked forward. I swirled around the tip before sucking him as deep as I could go. With my hand wrapped around the base to make sure I controlled how deep he went, I bobbed up and down on his length. His groans and the pumping of his hips urged me on, but I stopped and looked up at him when he reached out to cup my cheek. As incredible as your mouth feels, I want inside your pussy before I blow. Giving him one last lick, I released my grip on him and fell back onto the cushions. Dropping to his knees in front of me, Roman made quick work of my bra and panties. Fuck, you're ready for me, he grunted when he sunk a finger inside me. He added another, twisting his wrist to stretch me. Wet, tight, and so fucking perfect. Rising up, he crawled over me and positioned himself at my entrance. When his cock nudged against me, I wrapped my legs around his hips as he drove deep inside me with one powerful thrust. He circled his hips slowly, holding still when he hit just the right spot, and I gasped. Roman, please, I need more. I'll give it to you, but I want those pretty brown eyes of yours on me while I'm doing it. One of his hands moved to my chin, tilting my head up. You're mine, Jessa, and I want to see my woman as she flies apart in my arms. Uh-huh. Those damn uh-huhs of yours are going to be the death of me, he growled. Then fuck them out of me, I dared him. His blue eyes flared with heat as his fingers pressed into my hips to lift me up until my back was off the couch. Challenge accepted. And boy, was it. I could barely hold on, my legs squeezing his hips and my fingers gripping his shoulders as he powered in and out of me like a sledgehammer. My pussy clenched around Roman's dick as my body tightened and kneed. So close, I cried out. That's right, beautiful. Come for me. Strangle my cock with your tight pussy. I'm so fucking close. It'll send me right over the edge with you. I wanted that so badly, for me and for him. Sliding one hand between us, I reached down and lightly circled my clit. Holy fuck, he groaned. Now, beautiful. I can't hold out when you do shit like that. It's too fucking sexy. He swiveled his hips and ground against me, trapping my hand in between us as I reached my peak. Sinking deep, he held still as he let out a loud roar and came inside me. When he was done, he rolled onto his side and crushed me against his chest. I'm glad this part isn't over, I murmured. Chapter 10. Roman. It was only 7 o'clock in the morning, but I'd already been up for a couple of hours when Xander called me with an update. I'd expected to hear back from him the night before, but I figured if things had gone too badly, then he would have let me know right away. Was the guy more of a problem than we expected? Fuck no. He laughed. He almost peed his pants when he opened the door and found me standing there this morning. Sorry I didn't check in sooner to let you know that it was a no-go last night. But Callista had a surprise waiting for me when I got home, and no need to explain, I get it. Before Jessa came into my life, I would have given him shit for falling down on the job. But if the roles were reversed, I could easily see myself distracted by any surprise Jessa had in store for me. When I stopped by last night, the kid wasn't home. In addition to the online class, he's doing a couple of night ones on campus. Doesn't get home from them until late, from what his mom told me. After talking to her for a little bit, it was clear he wasn't going anywhere once he got home because she was pissed as shit when I told her why I was there. She must have given him hell all night long because the kid started apologizing before I even had the chance to get a word in. Stupid little shit thought she'd consider going out with him if he showed her how much he liked her, but he knows better now. He better, I growled, because if I ever see him anywhere near her, he's going to regret it. Oh, he knows all right. If you didn't beat his ass down for bothering Jessa again, his mom sure as shit would. The odds are good that boy would run screaming in the opposite direction if he even saw her on the street by accident. That works for me. The only thing better than that would be if I was the one to toss him across the street. I'm sure it does. The guys have mentioned that you're almost as territorial with Jessa as I am with Callista. I'm not going to have to worry about you scaring off all of our male clients, am I? Like you have room to talk. Yep, that's what I thought. He chuckled. I already sent a text to the team to let them know they're off duty and to head to their next assignment. I'll see you and Jessa in the office tomorrow? Yeah, about that. We need an extra day. Running off to get married? He guessed. No, just moving her into my place. I hung up to the sound of his laughter and headed outside to find Brecken's team. I only made it down the front steps before they came walking out of the woods towards me. Hey, Roman, Whit called out. We heard the good news and figured we'd say goodbye before we headed back up to Chicago. I really appreciate all the help, I thanked them. Enough to ditch the job in Atlanta and take Brecken up on his offer? Devin asked. Sarah elbowed him in the side. Don't be an idiot. The only moving he's going to be doing in the near future is of Jessa's stuff into his home. Damn straight, I agreed. I shook each of their hands and promised to bring Jessa up for a visit sometime so she could meet Brecken and his wife Hadley. Then I headed back inside to wake Jessa and pack up the truck. About an hour later, we were on the road back home. The ride was a lot better in this direction, and it wasn't because there was less traffic. When we were headed to the cabin, I'd had to keep my hands to myself. Not anymore. And I took full advantage of it by sifting the fingers on my right hand through her hair, trailing them along her thigh, and stroking the palm of her left hand. She spent most of the time turned in her seat looking at me, so she didn't notice when I passed the exit to her grandmother's house and headed towards my apartment instead. It wasn't until I pulled into the parking garage that she looked out of the window and asked, "Where are we?" My place. Her nose scrunched up like it did when she was confused. I thought you were taking me home. Yep, I answered as I parked. I don't live here, Roman. I shut off the engine, undid both our seatbelts, and pulled her onto my lap. But you should. You really think so? I slid my hands under her shirt to stroke her back. I've gotten greedy after having you all to myself for the past week. It has been nice, she sighed. But you don't think it's too soon? That depends. When you go to bed tonight, do you want to be here with me or at your grandmother's house with me? Those are my only two options? She asked with a laugh. I wasn't joking when I said you were mine, Jessa. I shifted so my hand covered her belly. And there might be another life growing inside you that's a little bit of you and a little bit of me that's mine too. What? A baby? Oh my gosh. She slapped a palm over her mouth and stared at me with wide brown eyes. If we're lucky, yeah. Her hand dropped down to press mine harder against her stomach. Lucky? To create life with the woman I've fallen in love with? Lucky isn't strong enough to describe it. Love, she gasped. You love me? Yes, Jessa, I love you. How could I not? Tears spilled down her cheeks, even as she flashed me a blinding smile. I love you too. I love you, you love me. How about you move in with me, have my baby, and get married? Yes, 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 she cried. Just maybe not in that exact order. Definitely not in that order. We'll tackle the first one today. Then we can get our marriage license tomorrow. And if you're already pregnant, you've got a little less than 9 months to plan whatever you'd like for the wedding, so long as you're my wife before the baby is born. Epilogue. Jessa. My eyes opened blearily to the sound of baby noises coming through the monitor on the nightstand next to our bed. Our sweet little girl was only 4 weeks old, and I was convinced that she had her daddy's appetite. Stay where you are, beautiful. I'll bring her to you. He offered, lifting my left hand to drop a kiss on it, right over the rings he'd placed there 9 months earlier. Even though Roman might have been fine waiting a little bit longer for our wedding, my grandmother had threatened to get her shotgun out if we didn't get hitched sooner rather than later. It wasn't the living together that had gotten to her. It was the fact that I might have already been knocked up. So she'd set to planning our wedding right away, and it turned out to be a good thing since the pregnancy test I took a week later was positive. How's my princess? I heard Roman murmur through the monitor and smiled. He was such a soft touch when it came to Kinsley. She had him wrapped around her tiny fingers, and it was a beautiful sight to see. Scooching up against the pillows, I reached out my arms to take the squirming bundle that was our daughter when Roman walked over to the side of the bed. Kinsley gave me a toothless grin and cooed before she latched on my breast and sucked hungrily. Roman grabbed me a cold bottle of water from the kitchen and set it on the bedside table before climbing back into bed. Sliding an arm behind me, he shifted our position so I was lying against his back, and he held me while the baby nursed. Remember that day in the truck when I told you that lucky wasn't strong enough of a word to describe what I'd be if you were pregnant with my baby? I smiled at the memory. How could I forget? It's when you told me we were getting married, too. Why? I still haven't come up with the right word, but I think it's because there just isn't one. Not in any language. I rubbed my cheek against his. That's because there doesn't need to be one. Not when you show me each and every day. This has been Body Language by Rochelle Paige. Read for you by Jarman Day.
Welcome back.
Welcome back, lady listeners. Thank you so much, Rochelle, for bringing us Body Language. We love you to pieces. Come back anytime. I want to see her again, and I don't know when it's going to be.
I feel like it's been a while either.
Yeah, I feel like it's been too long. We got to rectify this. We need to figure out what we need to do is sorry, it was a big car. We need to do a book signing. We need to host a book signing, and we need to invite all of our friends. And that's it. Yeah. But that's just it. Oh, maybe it's like a writer's retreat or something, but we don't really write. We just get all our friends together in one place. Yeah, let's do that. All right. Oh, up next, let's see. Who do we have next week? Oh, we have Jillian Leota. She has a book for us. I'm waiting to hear what the title is because now that I have it, I don't remember. So she actually sent it in to us as like a substitution because a lot of times throughout the season, we have authors that drop out if they have like personal things that come up or just work conflicts, or they committed to writing a book for the podcast and then just can't get to it for whatever reason. So a couple of times throughout the year, we'll have people that drop out. And this year we had several people that reached out to us after the year was already full. And I was like, well, if you want to write like as like a sub, you can write a story and have it ready to go. And, I said, if somebody drops out, I'm happy to email you first, and I'll go down the list. And if somebody has something they can send me that day, then you can have the spot. And so Jillian Leota was great. When I told her this, she sent me everything right then. And she was like, here it is. She was like, if somebody drops out, I'll take it. And I was like, damn, okay. I love it. So, yeah. So I'm really excited to have her with us. So, yeah, she's going to be joining us next week. So make sure you come back. And I think that's everything.
Tell them what to do.
Fuck your day up. Make today your bitch. Don't be a dick.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Read me romance. Read me romance. Read me romance. Read me romance. You could take a look in a book, that's fine. Or you could sit back, relax, and unwind and read me romance. Read